Okay, welcome to part 2 of Joe's tutorial series for video editing, tailored specifically to the Live from Studio B projects. Okay, where we left off, we have already downloaded our files from the shared drive, organized them into a folder here on the desktop, and created our project in Premiere. Okay. We are ready to start our sequence, start laying out our clips, and begin to do some editing with them. The only change from the last tutorial is that I've cleaned up my media bin here. I've put all of the files that are contained in my previous project, editing Pat's video, into one folder so that I can minimize that and have lots more room for us to work. Okay. Also point out that in our media bin, there's a few different ways that you can view your files in the media bin, and I always prefer this list view. It helps me stay organized, but that's what that is if you're interested in changing that. Okay. There's a couple ways to import files into our project. They are on our local drive, so we're ready to put them into Premiere. You'll notice up here there's an import tab in Premiere. If you click on that, this is one way to browse to find your files. Okay, so you can look on the local drive wherever they might be in the desktop. This happens to be some sample clips that Premiere auto-generated. You can search for them there, highlight them, and click the import button from there if you'd like. One thing to notice about this window is that create new sequence setting, I always click that off when you're importing media. Just for organization's sake, because I'm going to make my own sequence in a moment. Okay, so you can hit import there if you like that. I'm going to click back over to editing view. What I prefer to do, just for, again, my own sort of simplicity, is to import through this bin instead. You'll probably see in your new project a blue button that says import media. You can click on that. Or if you don't, anywhere there's open space in this media bin, you can double click and you'll get this import window. Okay. Okay, this is where we can now select media we want to import. We will look for our folder that we created on the desktop, find those files. In this case, it's 4 files. Sometimes it's more, which we'll go over later on. And we will click import. Okay, so now in my project media bin, I've got all the source files that I need to work with. Okay, the first thing to do before we get going is another organization tool. We should rename these files in our media bin so that it's clear what's what. Make things a lot easier later. If you prefer, you can always change the titles of those files first before you import them by changing them in your folder. That's fine too. Or if you haven't done that step, it's no big deal. You can do it right here in Premiere. Okay, so if I double click on a file, I can preview it in my clip previewer up here on the upper left of my project screen. And that way I can just tell which is which here. Okay, so this happens to be our camera 2 to the side of the performer. So what I'm going to do is just click inside that text to activate it and type in camera 2, cam 2. Okay. If I go to another one here, let's see what this is. Okay, this is our master shot, camera 1. So I'll name it as such. And this one must be camera 3. Yep, to the other side. Okay. The names of these shots are simply what we've been using for the productions and are completely flexible and can be changed. So it depends on what the nature of your project is, how you want to organize it. Okay. Pat LaBelle waveform, I'll just leave that name as it is. Pretty clear what that is. Okay. We're ready to begin a sequence here. And if you notice to the right-hand side, we've got a long horizontal window, Premiere window. And this is where our sequence will be generated and we'll do our edits. Okay. You can make new sequences in a project, as many as you might need, by clicking the new item and finding sequence there, as well as some other things that are built into Premiere that you can generate. For a simple project like this, I happen to know that the camera settings and the shots, the video files themselves, are carrying the correct specs for our sequence. So what is convenient about Premiere, if I click and drag, I'm going to take camera 1, click and drag, you'll see a plus sign in this window, and I drop it in there. I've just automatically generated a new sequence, and that sequence, it has all of the settings that are associated with that video file. So that works for us in this case. Okay, one thing to change, we've started our sequence, but notice it automatically names that sequence camera 1 because that's the name of the file we dragged in. And that's pretty confusing because this is going to be our whole edit for the whole project. So let's change the sequence name over in the media bin. We'll call this, I'll call it demo, and you might like to call it Live from Studio B project or the performer's name, completely up to you to stay organized. Notice in the media bin, we've got different icons that are representing different things. So a video file that also contains audio is listed with this icon. An audio file itself, like the waveform, is listed with a waveform icon, and a sequence is a little image of a sequence. So a series of tracks and a playhead, as it's called, or the cursor, is right over that. Okay, so we have one sequence and some other kinds of files in here. They're also colored slightly differently as their icons, which is helpful to organize as well. For a project like this, there's not going to be too much in the media bin, but as we add more and more media, it's helpful to stay organized over there. Okay. All right, we've dragged one file into our sequence. What I like to do generally when I'm starting out is to click and drag that using the arrow selection tool more toward off the edge of our sequence. We really have to think a little more horizontally and hierarchically right now as opposed to simply linearly. We're not thinking necessarily just left to right, beginning to end right now. We're building this in pieces. Okay, so I'm going to drag that over so I've got a little bit of room to play. And now I need camera 2 and camera 3 as well as the master wave file. So I'll go ahead and click camera 2. Be really careful when you're dragging these files into your sequence that you're not overwriting a file. So if I were to drag this right on top of my previous one, it's going to overwrite it. Rather than doing that, make sure it's going into the correct track you want. If it's being stubborn and not going where you need it to go, you can always put it back here, find the correct tracks for yourself, drop it, and then drag it to where you need it, which we're going to be doing anyway as we need to sync these files up. Okay, I'll do the same for camera 3. Click and drag, and mine is behaving, so that's good. And I'll drag it and drop it right there. And the last thing we need in here is the master audio file. So this sequence window can be customized, moved around, whatever you need. If you need a little more space, you can click and drag that window up or over. So you have a little bit more room to work, whatever is convenient for you. I'm going to take the WAV file, click and drag, and notice that there's 3 audio tracks right now, and we can have as many as we want. This is being a little stubborn. It's not automatically generating a 4th track, so I'm just going to drop it here in track 3 and move it after. There we go. Okay, so now I have 4 audio tracks and 3 video tracks. Okay, so each one of those video clips has audio attached to it, which is useful for us for now. We're going to use that as a syncing tool, and then when we're all synced up and ready, we're going to get rid of those camera audio tracks and just use our master audio for the edit. Okay, I'm going to stop this part here and move on to part 3 in just a moment.